I just wrapped up 10 incredible days sailing through Japan and South Korea on board the Norwegian Spirit. While the Norwegian Spirit is not the newest ship in Norwegian's fleet, it's actually the oldest Norwegian ship. After a massive $100 million renovation that was completed in 2020, you'd never know it. The ship looks like one of their newer ships with sleek and modern finishings, and what I love the most about her was the more intimate vibe on board. The ship is much smaller than their mega ships, which means that there's less crowds and more chances to really enjoy the journey. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire experience, from the must-see ports to what food, entertainment, and service are like on board Norwegian Spirit. Let's get into it. This is my full experience sailing from Tokyo to Seoul on the Norwegian Spirit. Hello everyone, my name is Zach. I am The Traveling Man, and if you've never watched one of my cruise review videos before, we do it using my STEPS process, and STEPS is an acronym. There are 5 components, of course. The first S stands for ship. We'll talk all about Norwegian Spirit. The T stands for taste. We'll talk all about the food. The E stands for entertainment. We'll tell you all about the entertainment offerings on board the ship. The P stands for ports, and I'm going to give you a rating on every single component, and at the end we'll give you a final rating of what the whole experience was like. And this is just kind of a baseline. This is how I do all my cruises. It's a way to sort of rack and stack and see how things line up. However, with the ports, we're not going to include that P for ports in the final rating. And then the second S stands for service. Now, before we get too far into this video, I do want to say thank you to my friends at Norwegian Cruise Line for sponsoring me on this cruise. They provided a lot of onboard amenities on this cruise, so I got to experience things like the Mandara Spa. I got to do some short excursions. I got to have a lot of specialty dining so that I can tell you about the full experience. But with that, I will say that this review is entirely my own words, my own thoughts on my experience. So let's jump right on in. We'll start with that first S, talking about the ship, the Norwegian Spirit, a ship built in 1998. And like I mentioned, recently underwent a $100 million refurbishment. And what you've got now is a very charming, classic cruise vibe on board the ship. I love an old cruise ship. I love these classic cruise ships. You know, they're smaller, they're older. The entire ship had been renovated. I'm talking about all the staterooms, every stateroom on board the ship, all the dining rooms, all the interior. It really made the ship look a lot like some of Norwegian's newer ships. I've been on Norwegian Encore, I've been on Norwegian Joy. Norwegian Spirit could have been right up there with those. Now, of course, for a cruise ship that's almost 30 years old, there is some wear and tear evident on the ship despite the renovation, but they have kept it in very, very good condition, and they keep it very clean too. That's one thing I can say. They're always doing some maintenance, they're always doing some cleaning around the ship. So the ship looked incredible. And in fact, I had an interior stateroom. I actually booked it as a solo interior stateroom, which means that I did not pay a solo supplement as a solo cruiser, which is fantastic. And I do have to say here that Norwegian does solo cruisers better than any other cruise line. You're going to get more value for your dollar if you're a solo cruiser with Norwegian, because they do offer solo staterooms in every category of stateroom on their ship. I'm talking about interior, ocean view, and balcony. In addition to getting no solo supplement as a solo cruiser, you're also going to get their More at Sea. And this is something that Norwegian offers to everyone, solo cruiser or not, but their More at Sea comes with things like an unlimited drink package. It comes with Wi-Fi minutes. It comes with shore excursion credit. So for example, on this cruise, I got a $50 credit, $50 back for every shore excursion that I booked. And I also received with my booking 2 specialty dining credits. So More at Sea is really awesome. And that's something that really keeps bringing me back to Norwegian, in addition to how they treat their solo cruisers. And as a solo cruiser, I can get More at Sea in addition to an interior stateroom. And it's not a stateroom that was built for just one person. It's a stateroom, a standard interior stateroom that they're just selling to solo cruisers. One of the downsides, though, was I was on deck 6 on this ship, and it was really tricky to maneuver due to the location of the dining rooms there on deck 6. There was also an unpleasant odor in the hallways sometimes. Now, this is typical of older cruise ships, of course. There's not really much that can be done about it. Now, as I mentioned, Norwegian offered me several onboard amenities, and one of those was being able to go to the Mandara Spa. I had full access to the thermal suite in there, and this is a bunch of heated loungers that they have. Beautiful floor-to-ceiling windows in there. A lot of times I'd go on that route as we were leaving a port. I mean, you're leaving, for instance, I was leaving Fuji, Japan, and looking at Mount Fuji while sitting in a thermal lounger reading a book. It was so relaxing. It was so cool. I really enjoyed getting to hang out in the thermal suite. I also got to partake in several spa treatments, and all of the treatment specialists inside the spa were just amazing. I was like friends with them after we were done, because I think I did like 3 or 4 spa treatments on this cruise. I got like a hot stone massage, which was life-changing. I did like an exfoliating salt scrub. I did a facial, and then I got my hair cut, and it was all fantastic. So really really enjoyed the Mandara Spa and glad I was able to go in there. Another area of the ship I really enjoyed was the Spinnaker Lounge. And if you're familiar with Norwegian, you know that they have observation lounges on all of their ships, usually in the very forward of the ship on one of the higher decks. A great place to go for someone like me in an interior stateroom. I didn't have a balcony or a window, so when we were arriving to or leaving a port, I'd often be in there. Loved it. Another place I really enjoyed, I think one of my favorite places on the ship was in the very back of the ship, Spice H2O, which is an adult-only area, and it's free. It's included for anyone that's an adult. But they had loungers out there. They're very padded premium loungers. There was also a pool back there. There's also a couple of hot tubs. I love to just go lay in a lounger and watch us leave port because you had a great wake view behind you. And the cool thing about it was they had what I call like stadium style seating back there that was really cool. It was connected to an area called the Great Outdoors. I really love that. They also had very fast and reliable internet on the ship. I did have their premium Wi-Fi. They do use Starlink on board Norwegian Spirit, so just know if you're going, you will have fast and reliable internet. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give the S for ship, Norwegian Spirit, a 3.8 out of a 5 rating. Next up, we got food, or the T for taste. There was delicious food all across the Norwegian Spirit. The main dining room was delicious. I went in there for a few meals throughout the cruise and just loved it. In fact, I had like a grilled tilapia in there one night, and I was just like, can't believe this is main dining room quality. It was so good. The service in there was so good and consistent. Speaking of consistent, the buffet was always consistent. The main buffet, I enjoyed going in there to eat, especially after getting back in on the ship from a day in port, going up there to grab a bite to eat. The food was always hot, delicious. The Local was another venue that I really enjoyed. The Local is open 24/7 on board most all Norwegian ships, but on the Spirit, it was a fantastic eatery. They also had a bar in there, but they have some of the best wings you're going to find at sea. I really enjoyed the sweet chili wings. Encourage you to get those if you happen to go on Norwegian Spirit. And the specialty dining on board Norwegian Spirit was top notch. I loved it. I think I had specialty dining for more than half of the cruise, and I just kept going back to some of my favorite specialty dining restaurants because they were just so good. Now, Silk is the Asian eatery on board, and I think that was my favorite. I went in there a couple of times. They have a beef and broccoli that was just fantastic. You have to go in there to get that. They also had some lychee spring rolls that were to die for. I got those a couple of times. A couple of other favorites of mine were Onda, which is the Italian specialty dining, and they had a really good pizza in there. I went in there on the last night of the cruise and just got a pizza and like pigged out. Nothing like a pizza and a cold Coke Zero for me. And then Cagney's, which is the premier specialty dining. It's a steakhouse on board, was also a highlight. I think I went in there 2 or 3 times, and the crew in there was just fantastic, and the food was just so delectable. And then I had a Starbucks package on board this cruise, so the Atrium coffee shop there in the main lobby was great. This crew there was great. I made friends with all of them. It was so wonderful. Every time I went there to get coffee, they would talk to me about my day. The coffee was always fantastic as well. And then they also offered breakfast. I talked about Spinnaker Lounge, that observation lounge there on deck 12 in the front of the ship. They would lay out breakfast in there every day of the cruise, so a great place to go and get a cup of coffee and a pastry and just sit by the windows and watch as we sailed into port for the day. So you're never going to run out of great places to eat on board Norwegian Spirit, and the food was some of the best I've had just about on any Norwegian ship. I loved it, and that's why I'm giving the T for taste, the score for food, a 4.8 out of a 5 rating. Next up is the E for entertainment, and on this cruise there were 2 main stage production shows, and these shows were just okay. I wouldn't say that they were anything to write home about. And in addition to the 2 main stage production show, there were 2 guest performers. Now, both of these did 2 nights each, so that's a total of 4 nights, plus the 2 main stage production show, that's 6 nights. There was one night of the cruise they had a welcome aboard show, which was just like a taster, a teaser of all the shows they were going to have throughout the cruise. They didn't have anything in the main theater the last night. Really, I feel like that could have been improved a little bit. There was live music, though, all around the ship. Anywhere you went, you would hear live music at night. They also played movies up on the big screen up at the pool deck, which was really nice. A couple times a day they would have movies out there. They'd also have movies in the main atrium. They had a big screen in there, and sometimes in the middle of the day they'd have movies. Also like that on those big screens every morning when we were pulling into port, Norwegian would have port information about the day. Like, we're going to be in this port today. Here's some taxi information. Here's just some basic navigational information about the port, some historical information. So I really enjoyed that aspect. They also had bingo and deal or no deal throughout the cruise. Now, these were at additional costs, but I love me some bingo. The casino was also awesome, and the cool thing about the casino on the ship, it was just unique. It was different. It didn't feel like you were on a ship. When I first walked in there, I'm like, well, this feels like I'm in Vegas or like a casino on land. It was just grand. You know, it took up a couple of decks there. It was so tall in there. Just very open, very cool feeling in the casino. However, it was very limited in its opening hours due to so many ports on this cruise, and for us not being in international water that much because we were just sailing between the ports there in Japan. Now, one of the biggest letdowns about entertainment on board the Spirit was that there was no comedy. If you've watched my videos before, you know I love comedy on a cruise. So I just wish there had been more comedy throughout the cruise. I wish maybe there had been a little bit more going on in the main theater. But otherwise, Norwegian's always going to have you entertained. They've got you hooked up with the live music and all the bars and lounges. So for entertainment, I'm going to give a rating of a 3.5 out of a 5. Next up is the P for ports. Remember, I'm going to give a rating for this one, but it's not going to count toward our rating at the end. This was an amazing itinerary. I said it many times while I was sailing and on social media and things. If you're not following me on social media, you certainly should. I'm over on Instagram, Zach the Traveling Man, at Facebook at the same. Such an amazing itinerary. A port every day. 0 sea days on this cruise. We left Tokyo. We stopped, I think there was like 6 stops in Japan, and then a couple stops in South Korea, and then we had an overnight in Seoul when we finished the cruise. So you can see here our total route, starting there in Tokyo and ending over in Seoul. A fantastic itinerary, but you see all the stops there, a stop every single day. This was an exhausting cruise itinerary. I do not recommend this if you need to get away and have like a week of therapeutic relaxation on the sea, because you're not going to get it. This is a lot of exploration. You're in Japan. You're here to see things, so it was like, let's get out and see it. I woke up early every day, ready to go. Not always ready to go, but I was ready to see stuff for sure. Now, I will warn against doing what I did. I cruised Japan in the summer, and I don't know why exactly I picked this time of year to go. It was very hot. Like, it was in the 90s Fahrenheit every single day. It was very humid in Japan. It was a little bit cooler when we got to South Korea, but just know, you've been warned. Don't go to Japan in the summer if you can't handle the heat. But you have to go to Japan. You have to promise me right now, everyone watching this video, that you go to Japan, that you cruise Japan. Japan is my favorite place in the world now. I absolutely love it and can't gush and say enough good things about it. So, for all those reasons, I'm going to give the P for ports a 5 out of a 5 rating. And lastly, that second S for service. This was some of the best service that I've ever had on a cruise. I've been on, I think, 41, 42 cruises at this point. I made so many friends with the cruise. That's just how incredibly nice and personable they all were. From the HM Cafe baristas, they really enhanced my cruise experience. I cannot say how much I appreciated them. The Mandara Spa crew, every therapy that I had in the spa was absolutely fantastic. It was just what I needed. And just the time that they took for everybody that I saw them interacting with. All the dining hosts, the servers, the sommeliers, and all the restaurants were all fantastic. Some of the best service that I've ever had in 41 cruises. It was just fantastic. And that's why I'm going to give the S for service, the only thing I can, a 5 out of a 5 rating. And if I did anything higher than a 5, they'd get like a 10,000, because incredible, incredible service on board Norwegian Spirit. So when we take all those components together, except for the ports, of course, we get an overall rating of a very solid 4.3 out of a 5 for the Norwegian Spirit. A fantastic experience that I cannot recommend enough. And actually just a few months ago, sailed on board Norwegian Aqua, which is the newest ship in Norwegian's fleet. I had 10 days on it, a transatlantic experience, and I actually had an equally awesome experience on Spirit. The oldest ship in the fleet, as I did on the Aqua, which is the newest ship. And that just goes to show you how far the good food, the good service, and the great ships go, no matter what Norwegian ship you might be sailing on. And all that paired with this once-in-a-lifetime itinerary made for a trip that I won't soon forget. And again, all at a great value with that more at sea and the no solo supplement, the great way they do solo cruisers. I can't recommend Norwegian Cruise Line and Norwegian Spirit to you enough. I had such a great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, go down below, give me a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have a lot more cruise content to come, a lot more cruises to go on this year, and I hope you go along and journey along with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure.